It was a horrific time for our nation.
It's American history, it's Oklahoma history, it's the history of the city.
An event so terrible, many history books have shamefully left it out.
I was surprised to learn how much my kids did not know.
They're talking about the 1921 Tulsa Race Riot, or as many know it, the Tulsa Race Massacre.
This was our nation's worst race riot.
Michelle Brown is with the Greenwood Cultural Center. Her office sits on the very spot where nearly 40 acres of vibrant, prosperous property was destroyed, and at least 300 innocent African Americans were senselessly killed. It's a repulsive, violent act that is still affecting lives today.
Having not received any type of reparations, just now being at a point where we are truly acknowledging this history, there's a lot of historical trauma that they are experiencing.
Dr. Carlos Hill teaches African and African American studies at the University of Oklahoma.
What had been one of the wealthiest communities, most educated communities, most peaceful communities in the country was destroyed in less than 18 hours.
The hatred overflowed on May 31st, 1921, after a young black man named Dick Rowland entered the Drexel building in downtown Tulsa and stepped aboard an elevator being operated by a white woman named Sarah Page.
Dick Rowland walks into the elevator, Sarah Page is there, the elevator door closes, there's a scream, the door opens again, and she runs out.
Within hours, Rowland had been accused of assault, even rape. He's arrested and placed in the city's jail. Newspapers in town begin to run their version of the story.
Newspapers in Tulsa begin to report an assault and even a rape.
As the story spread through the white neighborhoods, so did the anger.
And there's talk of a lynching, that Dick Rowland's going to be taken from the jail and lynched that night.
A small group of armed African American men go twice to speak with the sheriff, offering their support to help guard the city jail from the angry massing mob. The sheriff declines both times, but as the men are leaving the second time, a white person confronts the group.
And it tries to take away a gun from one of the men.
The African American men stand their ground.
And a melee ensues, the gun is fired, a white person is shot, and from that point, you know, as we would say, all hell breaks loose.
The African American men retreat down the road to the Greenwood district.
And they are followed very closely by the white men.
Gunfire continues to be exchanged between the groups.
When daybreak came, there's an even larger group of whites that have sort of mobilized, and at daybreak they enter into the Greenwood district.
What was a neighborhood of intellect, family values, some of the most successful African Americans in the country, became a war zone.
Began to burn, loot, kill innocent people, bystanders.
African Americans caught in the violent racist attack were killed, their livelihoods wiped from the map.
Their community was destroyed, their homes were destroyed, their businesses were destroyed, their churches were destroyed, their schools were destroyed.
Since then, Tulsa has been left with a scar that is yet to heal, wounds that have caused distrust of city leaders and allowed for systemic racist policies to dictate the lives of African Americans in Tulsa.
So the way that they feel about the police, the way they feel about city officials, the way they feel about being citizens of Tulsa.
Michelle Brown says only in learning the full history of the Tulsa Race Massacre can one begin to see the pain it has caused Tulsans for a century.
When we realize and acknowledge the history, we understand some of what they are experiencing emotionally and mentally and even spiritually.
That's why having the knowledge and courage to educate Tulsa's youth about our history is critical.
For a lot of kids, when they think of topics like segregation, they think of the deep, deep South, and they don't really connect it to Oklahoma and Tulsa.
Shrita Ashley teaches history at Edison Preparatory School. She says educating students about the race massacre helps them self-reflect and grow as young adults.
It made it more real for them because they could connect to places they knew in town, parts of town that they had lived in the past or they live in currently, and understand why was there so much difference between different segments of Tulsa.
But having these conversations has proved difficult for many adults, even teachers.
They did not feel comfortable talking about this part of history in their classrooms. They didn't know how to discuss it and address it.
Brown saying many educators she's mentored lacked enough knowledge to facilitate meaningful conversations.
They did not know enough about it to be able to educate their students about it.
For Shrita Ashley, the educational process for teachers begins with self-awareness.
And be okay with accepting that you've done things wrong, and it's okay. You know, you're a person, you're a human, and you realize this hasn't been working, and it's okay to change that.
Saying it's important to be okay with being uncomfortable, knowing students have a safe place to learn, discuss, and express themselves about the terrible events during the Tulsa Race Massacre.
So I think by having kids exposed to teachers who can guide them and facilitate those types of discussions helps the kids see how to facilitate those discussions.
They need to be aware of and be able to understand sort of how this issue still impacts them, how it still impacts their community.
That they give students the freedom to respond as openly and honestly as they would like. Give them the opportunity to express themselves.
The hope is that by educating students about the Tulsa Race Massacre and the lasting effects still resonating in Tulsa today,
The biggest strides and the biggest changes are definitely going to come in having kids grow up and take in those positions of power. They become the teachers, they become the leaders.
that they can grow into more well-informed adults that can create positive, lasting change in Tulsa.
Most of these students, as history has shown us, will be here. They'll be leaders in our city, and they can see where these problems started, and they can figure out where to go from here.
Hoping one day the deadly racist attack will serve as a reminder of our evil past, but also highlight the qualities of African Americans who endured such terrible acts of violence and oppression.
It was an attempted expulsion that was unsuccessful, and I think probably the thing that Black people are most proud about in relationship to the Tulsa Race Riot or the massacre is the fact that the community was rebuilt.
That African Americans in Tulsa would not break to the pressure of racism and injustice.
It's a testament to the strength of the community. It's a testament to the high quality of the people who were adversely impacted by the race riot.
And the importance of learning about our history so the city can heal, ultimately making Tulsa a place everyone feels welcome, that everyone can be proud to call home.
It makes the society better. That's why we believe in public education, right? Because an educated public leads us to all have a better quality of life.
And so I think it's more than just the history of violence and destruction. It's also this really story about courage and persistence and resilience.